So welcome to today's podcast. Thanks for joining me as always. So I'm really excited about today's podcast, and I'm by myself, which may or may not be good. And I'm not, if you're watching this podcast, I'm not stuck in some bunker somewhere. I'm at my co-working space in a little private area, nice, cool spot. But sometimes people are wondering if I threw myself in some sort of solitary confinement. But no, I'm all safe. I'm good. But I'm real excited. I'm fortunate this week as I'm recording this, getting back from a wonderful trip, a trip that I wasn't sure I was going to go on, but it was one that was organized by someone I knew and was in my frat and back 30 years ago. And I'm dating myself a little bit. And, we got to on a golfing trip out in the desert in Arizona with 7 other guys, and we just had a fun golf outing and tournament. We hung out, stayed at a casino, laughed a lot, got to enjoy some great company and food, and it was just an amazing time. And before, when I first accepted this trip, I wasn't sure it was the right thing, that I had enough time, and worry about how expensive it was, and all those sorts of things you run through. And through the course of it, now I'm back and reflecting on everything what happened, and I can't feel any wealthier than I do this week from coming from that trip. And it really shined the light on what true wealth really means. Obviously, in our world of finances, and that's usually the focal point. Like, how do we accumulate more wealth and distribute more wealth to others and family members and such? And it's important. It's one aspect of it. But as we know, like in terms of our lives, it's much more multifaceted than that. And there's a lot of ways that sometimes we can be super wealthy in one area, and especially say our bank accounts, but we're god awful poor in other areas, our relationships, our health, our time, our freedom, whatever it is, that those things can be very much poor because we are so focused in one area. So today I really want to cover a basic sort of framework I came across, and I thought it was really good to help frame wealth in a different way and really put in perspective for you to think about, and evaluate even for yourselves where you are wealthy and where maybe you're lacking in some scenarios. And, when I think about it in my lens, it's really about wealth is that, having abundance in any area of life. And it could be in a lot of different areas. And we're going to cover that. And in a lot of ways, wealth can't buy some of the things that, we truly want. And as we grow older, I think more people, and some of the conversations I was having at this event really touched on it, is like fulfillment in life, meaning, right? Peace, obviously freedom, right? These are things we all covet and want and feel like we want to get in, money may be able to get that in some shape or form. Maybe it does a little bit, but really it's much deeper than that. And there's a lot of aspects of our lives that deserve some of our resources and the time and attention to really help it grow and build and feel like we're wealthy and abundant. Because we've often heard the stories of people who are, have everything in the world and have all the money. You think, how could they ever be unhappy? And then all of a sudden they commit suicide, or they, you're just miserable, right? So we know money is important, and I'm not going to discount that because I enjoy life with more money. I think it helps certainly enjoy life. And, obviously you have folks who are people who have decided maybe to get away from that, and they want to be a monk or live a life on very little. And again, that's all a choosing, and that's fine. I think for most people listening to this, I see some value having at least some material wealth, some wealth to be able to sustain their lives, but, enhance it in some way, right? To be able to provide for a family in a way that you want. So I think definitely having wealth is great. Can it be all consuming? Of course. So here in my lens, the 5 major areas of capital and building of wealth and what it means to me, and maybe some things for you to consider along the way here. And just in the vein of being holistic, this is exactly about that. It isn't just about building wealth. Now, so the first one, we'll just touch on it, and it's a clear one, is financial capital, right? We need money, we need assets, we need cash flow to live. We can't just, eat, I guess you could live on the ground, on the earth, and not have any cash flow coming in to buy things. But for the most part, most people need cash flow, we need investments. We need that to fuel our lives, right? For us in our daily living and in our future living. I mean, I'm not a big proponent on, say, retirement, but some people, that's the mantra. Like, I'm going to build and accumulate wealth, and I'll save a little bit along the way and keep some cash flow for expenses. But then someday I'm going to turn those assets and turn them into an income, so I don't have to work, right? A job I hate or whatever a situation. So that's very important. Like I said, there's an important aspect of it. I think you got to find something that helps you build some capital. You may not love a job or a business you're in, but maybe that's where you can gravitate to something that you can enjoy. So that's sustainable for much, much longer, and hopefully, keep you in a good mood over time. But, having financial, at least some basic level. And certainly there's proof around this, there's some studies around some minimum amount of income that people, only get a small incremental amount of happiness after, right? But again, I'm of the position, having more, especially if you're doing good in terms of getting it and bringing value to the world, you deserve to have more wealth and accumulate. And obviously, anyone who's listening to this podcast recognize that how much I value and don't want to waste it, right? We want to maximize it and use it to support the things that are important in our lives, and then give and share it with others and use it for good, right? And don't want to waste it. And there's a lot of other episodes related to that, but let's just kind of leave it at that. So financial capital, clear, important for most people, at least having some minimum amount to give you some level of security, peace of mind, all those sorts of things, and help you plan for big goals in your life. So important aspect. And probably the one that gets really the heavy focus. The second form of capital, which I think is, in my mind, over as I've grown older, and maybe it's because of that, is time capital, right? This is to be able to control your schedule, be able to dictate how your days go, when you do things, and having time to do all, maybe hobbies and other things that you enjoy doing to help you fulfill your life. And so having that time freedom, a lot of people I talk to in a lot of scenarios will give me an excuse or sort of rationale. I don't have any time. Like, I'm just so busy. And it's crazy in the world we live in today where, say we have so much access to information and the technologies are crazy in terms of what's out there these days. It's just amazing to be living in this time and age. But we are in constant hurry mode. We're constantly running, feeling like we just have to kind of go. So, having this time capital of being able to dictate our days and how we spend it and get to do the things that we actually want to do in our lives that really give us some sort of benefit, that's a massive sort of resource to have. I mean, time is our scarcest resource. And, here in the situation here, I got to regroup with folks that I haven't seen in 30 years, and like how much time between those times that we met and hung out, like that just passed in a blink of an eye. And we always say that, and we know that, but when you really put it in perspective, it's crazy. And, and so each day I value it more and try to maximize it and try to choose where I'm spending time so that it maximizes my usefulness and enjoyment and fulfillment in life, and doing that as much as we can on a daily basis. And it requires your intentionality, because we know how quickly we can get distracted and time slips away, and it's just so easy to do. And we may look back and say, I wish I had more time. And so time capital to me is so big and so important, and something, knowing of my mortality, and I think about it certainly in my world in the financial space, it's relevant, right? Planning for retirement, it'd be super easy if I knew when the day I was going to leave this earth and graduate. Well, because we don't know, it could be today, it could be 50, 60 years from now. It makes it difficult to plan. So trying to use our time on a daily basis as well as we can is hugely important to our wealth and abundance and well-being overall. So the third form of capital, which I think, certainly as we age, just becomes again a more increasing, level of importance to helping us feel abundant and wealthy, is our health, right? As we know, as we age, I can feel it sometimes in my bones, when you don't always feel like you have all the flexibility and comfort that I had as a youth, right? I'm watching my son who's 16 playing football, and he's just like moving at light speed in comparison. And I remember those days I had that. And, we know our health as we age, and our strength and all those things can deteriorate if we allow it. And we know that our vitality and our emotional well-being is all wrapped up in that too. It's not just physical, right? It's our emotional state and how we can be strong emotionally. And it's really hard these days when, there's so much chaos and confusion and uncertainty in the world to really weigh on us. So spending more time and effort and resources to build that up is so important. I never really, yeah, I certainly in my lifetime, I was always a pretty good athlete and spent time on health, but really didn't think about, if I was eating correctly all the time. And there's other things that are, maybe happening under the surface that you don't know about until you get it tested, and spending some time and resources to address it is so key. So, and we know that once we feel healthier, we're probably going to show up each day in a better way and have more energy to maybe work extra if that's what you want to do. And it just gives us more benefit on a daily basis. But we have to spend time doing it and exercising and doing and getting the right sort of medical attention to help us live our fittest life, and even things as basic as sleep, right? So thinking about it from that perspective, it's so easy. And when you look at kind of what's happened to, at least here in America, where there's like almost an epidemic of people who are unfortunately obese and leading down the road of potentially worse health problems down the road, that whether it's cancer, diabetes, all those things that we know of, like that's going to rob us. Because what I do know is when life hits us and, and money and other things become a problem, like it's kind of overwhelming. But when you have a serious health issue, then there's no other problems, right? And I know that day could come for any of us. We don't know. There's a lot of things that we cannot control. But how do we tilt that to our favor and live it as abundant a life in our health is so key to protect us from all those bad things. And even a financial hit from trying to deal with medical issues is so key, let alone, so how does it help us perform better on a daily basis, mentally, emotionally, health-wise, and even in our work. So health is such a key area, and certainly an area of focus. I think could really create massive dividends that sometimes we can understate and underappreciate. The fourth form of capital, which, is, and maybe this is a guy thing, I don't know. Like some guys, at least for me, I'm a fairly introverted guy. A relationship capital to me, sometimes I could ignore, right? I'm comfortable being by myself, just full transparency. But, I know we're still humans, and socially having good relationships with others is so important in this world. You think about what people who are, at their deathbed, and what's regrets of 5 regrets of the dying, and they talk about that, like it's the people that they lost touch with, and the family members that maybe they mistreated, and the relationships they didn't foster over time is really something that can help. If you've done that in a healthy manner, it can really breed such connectedness and fulfillment in life. And you can easily discount it because we get so busy and all those other things that we feel are important to drive to success, and primarily financially. But the relationship capital, who we're working with, who we get to spend time with, right? And who kind of influences us, because we know in the world of, what's that phrase of you almost become the average of the 5 or so people around you. So it's really important to realize who you're around and what energy they bring to you or draw from you. And, making conscious decisions sometimes to maybe shift direction with that. And we all evolve in that case. And it's nothing personal. It's recognizing that, maybe we need something else in our lives. And there's things that maybe, we desire more that will really give us some level of increased fulfillment and enjoyment. And that could be spending more time with family and friends, or, people that inspire us. For me, that's what drives me too. Like I love people who are just doing great things and wonderful things in the world and creating their own legacies in the world, and inspires me to want to be better. So it's really important to understand who you're around and whether they're helping you to achieve who you want to be and where you want to go, or maybe detracting from it. And maybe there requires a change. And it really is a key area of our wealth. And, certainly family being the centerpiece, which I think in this day and age, there's probably less focus on it. And I didn't grow up sort of in that world where it was super important. I know there used to be a time where that was. And these days, it's almost like almost a forgotten thing. And, it's one of those areas that building the family unit, it's the first team you're on, right? If you think about it, I'm a big sports guy. It's like the team you were born with, whether you like it or not. And well, at least the spouse, you have a choice. But, but your children and your parents, these are team members of yours. You're on your team that you didn't get to choose for the most part. And it's like, how do you work together? How do you become a unit that actually can show up in this world in a unique way and be a dynamic team? And so that's just an area that is something to consider as you're thinking about, like, what is that mission vision of your own family and team? And, how does that kind of show up in this world? So relationships, I think, are huge, and certainly one that I've underappreciated. And certainly from this latest trip, really helps me reinforce that I need to put some more deposits in there and build that up and accumulate, because I know that could be hugely rewarding and an area that can bring massive benefits and dividends to me over time. Now, the last one can be somewhat controversial for some folks, and for me, it really wasn't a meaningful thing early on for me. It's a purpose, like a purpose capital, right? What's our meaning in life? Like having some mission in our lives personally, and then we have some contribution, meaning to what we do on a daily basis. And I didn't really think about it early in my life, and just trying to kind of survive and figure out my path. And as I've grown older and realized kind of some things in my life that are more meaningful, it's really shined a light on these things, right? What is the purpose? What gets me going on a daily and weekly, monthly basis that will keep me energized and feeling like, I'm doing my part in this world and helping my family and those around me and society at large. I mean, those are things that just personally meaning. And we all have to find that for ourselves, because we can easily slip into these modes of just kind of skating through and sort of getting into the grind and trapped into this environment that is, it's almost like Groundhog Day. And I did feel that for some time, even in my own life. And you may too, in your business or your job and life. But this is where, stepping back from it and recognizing, hey, you've got unique talents and skills and experiences that nobody in this world has. And, it's a shame that potentially the world never sees it, potentially. And so it's something to maybe consider. And I went through separately, not saying you have to go through this, but a process to examine that. And it's called the blueprint process. And it really helped me sort of get clear on kind of why do I exist in this world, right? What am I meant to do to impact things and bring meaning to my life on this earth, and hopefully establish some sort of legacy, not just a financial one, but something that's going to last and enhance what's happening in this world in my own unique way. And it's not about creating fame or fortune or whatever. And there's elements to it, but what's going to continue to give me strength and passion to kind of move forward on a daily basis and make the most out of each and every day, right? And that's going to be unique to everybody to figure out. So having a purpose during life, and it doesn't have to be about philanthropy or whatever, it's all unique. But we all have to discover for that ourselves, and needed someone to help me. So that's kind of the road I took. So, I kind of did obviously broad strokes of it in terms of different types of capital, and they all sort of contribute, just like our own financial lives. Like, there's different components of it that sort of, they're additive to it. So having, abundance in all these areas probably gives you the highest level of fulfillment and enjoyment in life. And sometimes, you need to evaluate them. So what I would suggest for you as you're listening to this, thinking through it, is maybe just even doing the self-assessment of yourself, where you feel in terms of your wealth in those different areas, right? And trying to be honest with it. I did this sort of assessment myself and recognized there are areas that I was clearly lacking and needed some attention and investment in that respect, right? To build and grow, and take maybe 1 to 2 of them to assess, like, what are some things that you can actually do in the near term to start making some investments and deposits in those areas, right? To enhance what you're doing in those areas to start building it. And maybe that requires scheduling some time with your family to talk through these things and helping you define what wealthy means in those areas to you. We may not know off the bat, but the only way to sort of improve and get to enhance these things is to face them head on, whether they're discomforting or not. And I mean, we unfortunately have to face the music, or we can sort of ignore it and hope for the best. And I know for you, the folks listening to this, the reason you listen to these sorts of podcasts in general, because you're wanting to get educated. You want to find ways to take action. You just need some more information or sort of push to do it. And so hopefully this gives you at least a starting point to help you define what wealth means to you in all those different areas, and then identifying one or two things that you can target to move forward, to enhance. And then you start learning more about what it means to you to be wealthy in those areas. And it's a lifelong journey. And you might never get to the end, right? To be absolutely that gazillionaire in all those different areas, but our intentionality will at least move us forward. And I think the momentum will give you some energy, confidence, and hopefully motivation, because what I bet is once those start happening in your life, that's going to trickle to the other people around you. And that's when the really goodness really happens. And, we all become wealthier, which I think is great. So that's all I wanted to share today. Hopefully this gives you some good sort of thoughts and perspectives on it for your own sort of wealth journey. And hopefully it gives you some strength to, be honest with yourself and identify areas that you can improve and continue forward from there. So thanks for joining me as always, and I look forward to the next episode of the Perennial Pride Podcast.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride Podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.